Does anyone know this?
Yeah, we're gonna break some shit.
This is dead. I mean, yeah, sure, we had the Boston Tea Party, but I'm pretty sure we killed all of them first.
Yeah.
Those are the first Indians to die.
No. Folks,
we're flabbergasted now.
Flip
we
on
just
it.
ran down a rabbit hole.
We're starting on this thing because,
my knee's
for
gone.
fuck's sake. Now, we weren't going to talk about any of this, but we started looking at flags, and we were talking about Lapland, Finland for some reason, and we pulled up the Lapland, Finland flag, which is just this Nordic
The coolest thing I've ever seen. He actually looks like a Hindu.
Old school Baltic motherfucker is gonna,
He's just got a club. He's got an 8-pack, and he's ready to destroy you in his underwear. And it must be cold out.
Yeah, he's got a club. He's got literally just a club.
Yeah.
And it's a good flag because there's just lots of big swashes of color, and it's red, and there's
this guy has on green undies and a green hat, and he's well bearded with a humongous
and you can see
club.
it. You can see it from long way away.
Oh, without doubt.
And know what it is.
Yes.
Now, then we were like, well, what the fuck does Massachusetts, where we record
Larry
our
said,
podcast,
what the fuck? Does Massachusetts have a flag? Does every state?
It does, and it's the most like.
It's a little twisted, man.
It's the most Massachusetts fucking flag. Like, this is the epitome of, like, what's wrong with Massachusetts, is that we have the gall to put a Native American on our flag.
It's a Native American
and then
holding a longbow with an arrow. Longbow is obviously not in use. He's not using this arrow or longbow. He's just standing there. But above him, as I did point out, Crunch is
a saber-wielding arm that looks like it's coming off the top of a rope.
From our cavalry. That would be like the right arm of our cavalry member. And it really looks like he's just about to behead. He's just about to take that head right off. Yeah.
So let's look up the motto of Massachusetts that's on the Massachusetts state flag. So just real quick before...
Oh, you mean we're going to translate to Latin?
Yeah, we got to get to our guest in like a minute here, but... Ense petit placidam... The use loosely translated, by the sword we seek peace, but peace only under liberty.
Oh, so that makes a lot of sense because these are the first Native Americans.
Yeah, so these friggin' forest N-words that we found are not quiet and not peaceful, and they don't enjoy liberty. So we're gonna fuck them up, and then after that, we'll have a nice peace. Quiet little,
once we quell the opposition
with no marijuana dispensaries in our downtowns or anything like that. Yeah, we got to get over to our guest. We got to hop over real quick to the Slack channel.
We're just very disappointed in you, Massachusetts. Why would you have the guy with the saber right above the Native American's head?
Yeah. It's embarrassing.
It's like a backstab. Like, oh, here you are. Look, you're on our... We made peace with the Native Tea Party. Yeah. Oh.
Yay.
But that's true. We then decapitate many of you.
But no.
Sorry. Would you guys like some blankets?
Yeah.
Here, all right, have some blankets. It's very cold. I'm sorry.
On our show tonight, we have the founder of the Bernie or Bust movement, which was a movement in the 2016 American elections to defeat Hillary Clinton from the left. And
it was really
basically
a push
primary
of socialist
and then
America.
Yeah, it's a socialist movement from the left, trying to get centrism and get neoliberalism out of America, and bring in a populist left candidate, and get Bernie Sanders elected in 2016. He's released a new book called Bernie or Bust, Pioneers of Electoral Revolt. So we're going to talk about revolution with this guy. We're going to talk about sowing the seeds.
He's in my camp on the Electoral College, my friend.
Oh yeah, let's do this.
I am going to set you firmly in the camp of you believe the Electoral College is the best thing in the world.
Here we go. So we're going to call him up. We're going to do this.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That just wish Bernie had debated Trump.
I know.
I look back on 2016. I mean, that is really like the highlight show that I never got to see.
Victor, you here? Howdy. Hello.
How you doing tonight?
Crunch Dog and Larry are here with you, hanging out.
How are you doing this evening?
I don't think I can be heard, can I?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear us. Hold on. We might have the same problem that we had before. Can you hear me now? Uh-oh.
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties, folks. Let's take a pause here for a second while we get this sorted.
Too many apps open. What do we got? Too many
windows
apps
open? Yeah, 1 second,
We're
folks.
connected to too many things. Well, we're going to have to see about this.
All right, let's just have him call.
But I really do just want to talk to him about how much I missed that. And it was taken. I feel like it was taken from me because the debates that we saw were so anticlimactic and ended up being horrible.
Well, they asked him about that in an interview. I saw that where he was like, do you lament not being able to debate Bernie Trump? No, but Sanders was like, oh, I would have loved that. He was like...
I'm sure that he... I mean, I just... That's what I was wishing for throughout the whole thing. I was like, I just want these two to go at it so that he can depants Trump politically.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if Bernie is nothing, he's politically savvy. He's been in the game for so long. He's been pushing this agenda that's difficult for some people to swallow, but at the same time, I mean, it's a rising tide, and I just don't know if it crested.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, Occupy had a big swell and then a big backlash. Sanders and other elements of the left had a big swell and then a huge backlash in the form of Trump and stuff. So is there going to be another rising tide and another
sort of failed experiment? Because socialism isn't an experiment. I mean, we know what it is. We know what their message is, and so much of it makes sense. But we know that to move the ball on that, you have to have the money behind you, and the money would never back that ball.
Yeah, or
so the ball
unless unless our guest can figure out a way to.
I think he'll be able to do it. We'll see.
Get around this whole problem with the money.
I want to know who.
And here he is. There we go. That's much better.
Great.
Good. So we're here with I'm Crunch Dog.
I'm Larry.
And I'm Victor.
Hey, Victor. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate this opportunity to talk about what we did there in 2016 and a little bit about what we might be heading toward this next year.
Yeah. We were sitting here just lamenting of that sort of that whole debate scenario of how much I wished I had seen a debate between Trump and Bernie last year, and how the calamity of events that we're stuck with now today, how it obviously happened, and now how we're trying to move forward from there. But we love the tone of your book. I mean, we realize that we really do need to somehow unify besides somebody with a good idea instead of a lot of retread ideas, and we're looking forward to getting your perspective on it.
What we did was completely unprecedented in American history, and we realized at the time we had no guide, we had no history book, no one had done it before, so we basically figured out how to proceed as we went, and we used social media in a way I don't believe is going to be possible again next time around, just because of the restrictions.
Yeah.
Facebook, and I have a feeling I'm being shadow banned on Twitter too. So I don't,
really?
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience. Tell me about what it's like, because I wonder about our account sometimes too.
Well, I used to just compare, the retweets I used to get compared to what I get now. The retweets and the likes are a fraction of what they used to be. So.
Okay. Yeah. Now, you're mentioning the precedent here. There's been precedent from the right a little bit with George Wallace and other candidates that have sort of primaried Republican candidates from the right. What elements of your approach are new from there?
The closest thing on the right to what we did was actually in the very first Republican debate in 2015. The very first question was whether the candidates were going to back the ultimate nominee or not, and Donald Trump said no. In fact, it's leverage. He was ready to run as an independent at least rhetorically, if he didn't get the nomination. And that leverage. Our version is grassroots version, which is basically we built a movement of voters pledged to support either Bernie Sanders or the Green Party candidate. Turned out to be Jill Stein. That's leverage. As soon as we hit 50,000 pledged voters, the mainstream media, to a certain extent, paid attention to what we were doing. That's what got their attention. But of course, on MSNBC Clinton, they never heard the phrase Bernie or bust mentioned until Sarah Silverman spilled out the first night of the DNC. That's the first time they even heard that expression on MSNBC. It was unbelievable.
When she called you all children and told you all to grow up.
She said we were being ridiculous.
Right.
We should get in line, support a warmonger and neoliberal like Hillary Clinton, like she was doing. We're the ones being ridiculous because we won't support a dangerous warmonger. One of the more interesting and perhaps controversial parts of this book is comparing Clinton with Donald Trump. In our view, both in Philadelphia when we spoke at the Bernie or Bust rally and onward in the book, and even to today, although to a lesser extent, that Hillary Clinton was actually more dangerous than Donald Trump. His incompetence is a good thing because he just can't get as much done, versus her militarized competence. We could be at war with Russia by now if she had won that election.
Yeah, the Middle East would be worse off for sure.
That was one dynamic with the female presidency that would have been interesting in dealing with countries like that.
Right. When we switched after the DNC from Bernie or bust to Joe Steiner bust, I tweeted Gloria Steinem, who was supporting Hillary Clinton. I said, "We'll see your woman in the White House and raise you one political revolutionary."
Nice. Now,
who do you see as the revolutionary now? Who should we be? Because I mean, I'm starving for somebody to get behind.
Yeah. In the book, we indicate that next time around, a handful of us, those of us on the Revolt Against Plutocracy Committee, are going to make that decision for a movement. It's the decision. That decision is for the movement to make. We still have 48,000 people on our newsletter, and the decision when we published the book was we were going to let them decide who we're going to support. And this time around, basically we're going to combine what we did in 2016 with what we did in the midterms, which was asking candidates to sign a contract with voters committing themselves to this populist agenda of combating climate change, free college, infrastructure programs, and universal health care, things like that.
This thing that they're signing, it's a policy document? It's sort of like a contract or a pledge?
Or is it more like the pro-truth pledge?
It was a contract. We called it a contract.
Yeah.
We claimed it was enforceable, but in fact, it's nothing more than a pledge because these contracts, there isn't a judge in this country who will actually enforce these contracts. But we call it a contract, and that's how we're actually going to announce our 2020 strategy right after New Year's next year. So I don't want to divulge too much. We're on Facebook as Revolt Against Plutocracy. The announcement will be made there. And we have a YouTube channel, Revolt Against Plutocracy, where the announcement will be made. But it's not going to be a candidate we're going to get behind this time.
Right.
It's an idea?
An issue. I don't want to...
You use the word plutocracy. Tell us in your words what that means.
Sure. Plutocracy is a government of, by, and for the very few, the wealthy. Right? And that's what... I became a revolutionary in 2014, not long after the Martin Gillham's and Benjamin Page publication of Testing Theories of American Politics, Elite Interest Groups, and Average Citizens, in which they basically point out this government has been a plutocracy or an oligarchy for 3 decades. That what the public wants Congress ignores, and what the fat cats want is what we get, more than anything else. So it was shortly after that essay or research paper that they did that I realized we're not going to get what we were working on at the time, which was an amendment to the Constitution to overturn the Citizens United FEC decision. We were working to amend the Constitution, and for those who don't understand that decision, it basically allowed corporations, large corporations, to be involved in spending and in speech in electioneering communications on television and radio. It allowed them to be involved in our elections, and we just didn't think they were people. So
yeah,
we were working.
That was question 3 for us in Massachusetts this year. 2. I'm sorry,
yeah.
2. Yeah.
Right. So it was in 2014 that we realized that it's not going to happen because the government is in control of the wealthy. And on New Year's Day 2015, I published Standing on the Edge of the Next American Revolution. I didn't realize that how close to the edge I was, because about a month later, Bernie Sanders told Washington Post that this country needs a political revolution.
Now, okay, I got to ask you the tough question about any revolution that gets asked is, the revolution happens, you win, every goal that you seek to, every aim gets involved. What happens next? What happens the next day when society sort of restarts again? What does that look like to you?
Well, the next day, it's always going to be a struggle because we always have people who are different than us ideologically, right?
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a struggle. There's always going to be tension with those who want more.
Yeah, and you can't kill them. That's not allowed. We've seen that not work in the past. So what do you do with those people? What do you do with everybody else?
Well, we're in a free country. They do what they want to do. The idea is to enhance liberty, not take people's liberty away from them. That is the goal of the revolution, is to make everyone free. We're not in a free country when people can't afford health care, for example.
Yeah.
When they die because they can't afford to go to the doctor, or they get too sick and end up going to the emergency room because they can't afford a doctor. That's not freedom. That's slavery to a system that doesn't work.
Nope.
So in the aftermath of a revolution, long after the revolution, when the new ideals settle in as policies and the revolutionaries become, in 5, 10, 20 years, the new establishment, then another revolution has to come along and displace those people with new ideals and bend the arc of history toward justice further than we're able to do, or the revolutionaries of the current generation are able to do.
Good, Larry.
Well, I was wondering, so it's obviously the war against sort of the 1%, but that term, and I feel like terms have become, and sort of slogans have become a way to get people to actually work together. And I feel like that whole, we're against that 1%, like that term is played out. Have you guys come up with any new good, I hate to say catchphrases because I know how ridiculous it is, but I think we've seen that's a way to people's minds.
Well, we're focused very much on electoral politics, not to the exclusion of on the streets protesting and direct action and civil disobedience. We support all that too, like what's happening in Paris or across France at this point. But it is a good kind of social demonstration and protest, but revolt against plutocracy's focus is on electoral politics. We started planning for 2020 the day after the midterms. Right? This isn't something we do once every 2 years. This is something we're always doing. Either we're promoting the next strategy or applying the next strategy or figuring out what the next strategy is going to be. This isn't a part-time job, even though I have another full-time job that pays the bills.
Yeah.
What I do part-time for free, for nothing, nobody ever pays me, is year-round. I never stop thinking about how to apply leverage in the next election. Basically, I'll give you a hint for what we're intending next time around. We're gonna force the Democratic Party to save the planet or else screw them. They're not any better than Donald Trump. If they're not willing to do what's necessary to save this planet, then they're not worth supporting. They're no better than fracking Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, no, I like
so
the
you're
green,
gonna say,
the green initiative.
It's
no,
going to be great.
I mean,
it's going to be great when we all get along. It's going to be great when our economy is wonderful and we've moved on to, great adventures, and we're all choking on the air and burning to death outside, and right. That's what I'm hearing, and I like that. I'm down with that.
I like the new government report that we just had about how our economy is going to get battered by climate change, and no one, that is a hot button issue. I like the fact that will be a point for you guys of contention.
So talk to us about 2020 then. What's the layout? What's the game field look like, and what can you tell us now about your strategy that you're comfortable or willing to share? Because it sounds exciting.
Sort of similar to the midterms. We have a pledge and a contract. Candidates have a choice; they can sign either one. They're equivalent, but it represents a commitment to voters to support this particular issue. Which, as I said, we're actually demanding that Democrats, or at least anyone who wants to get to the White House, has to do something to address this climate emergency that we're in. And in addition to the pledge or contract, they also have to either make a major speech outlining a specific approach that's a little bit more extensive than the Green New Deal that's being discussed now in Congress. And, I should say, or include we call it a three-pronged approach, include that in their stump speech. That would represent an equivalent commitment, rhetorical commitment to what we call climate preservation. So that's what we're leaning toward. And if I could just direct people to get this book, because tomorrow, the 10th of December, is the last day you can order it and have it as a gift for Christmas. So if anybody might be thinking about getting this gift for a budding revolutionary or a clueless Illbot in your family, go to bernieorbust.info, INFO, and order the book by tomorrow.
All right, hold on.
Otherwise, it's going to take too long between order and delivery.
Pull up on the live feed here.
Yep. And you have to help Crunch Dog and myself here out on an issue. I mean, you keep saying electoral, and that's just close enough. How do you feel about the Electoral College?
It's outdated. It's anti-democratic. The framers did that because they didn't trust the people to elect someone. But I figure if Donald Trump can get past the Electoral College, it has no use anyway. So it's pretty obsolete.
Well, to me, it makes it into a chessboard where it's like, well, no, I maintain this space on this board, so I win. It doesn't matter that you have more spaces on the board. It just matters that I have these spaces on the board.
As obsolete and anti-democratic as it is, if we didn't have it in 2016, we would have ended up with a greater of two dangerous candidates.
That's true, but I still believe that the people should their vote should just be heard as a tally. I agree with you. I agree with you. It's obsolete and it's anti-democratic, but it does serve. You talk about the board that you get a certain number of pieces. It does serve to better represent the people in the heartland, the people in the flyover section of the country, rather than just representing the coast. Because we have a layout in this country where the industrial zones are near the ports. So they're on the East Coast and the West Coast, and the people in the middle are just kind of getting forgotten and screwed over. So, So every 4 years we make them important, and that's all they need.
Well, obviously they need much more. We all need much more in terms of
That's
direct.
true. I can't argue that point with you for 1 second.
Well, we need better representation. We need better local control of various activities, particularly with regard to climate preservation. There's a lot of things that can be done locally that the federal government, of course, isn't going to do anything until Donald Trump is out of here. So that's unfortunately that's the case for between now and then, and we'll see what happens after 2020. Hopefully, we'll get somebody who supports this issue and elect them to the White House, and get supporters the same way in Congress, so we can actually start doing something to preserve this plan. But the problem is, these people with huge vested interest in oil and gas don't want to give that wealth up.
Well, they're running the EPA right now. It's very easy for them.
It's not just the EPA. The last UN climate report, the first major finding was that in 40 years we're all dead, or some horrible
40 years
outcome.
We're all going to really start to feel
or
the
if
pinch,
you don't
even on our
stop
wallets.
it in 40 years, we're fucked. The second major finding was that all of these things were being done, Victor, correct me if I'm wrong, by about 100 people.
All what things?
All of the fuel, the major fuel emissions and stuff. If you trace the pyramid all the way up to the plutocracy, like you mentioned, it's about 100 people that's causing most of the fossil fuel emissions.
Like the guy that runs Amazon.
Or the guy that runs Exxon or whatever. Yeah.
They might be the captains of carbon. I agree with that. But all of us play a part in this.
Sure. Yeah. We can all throw away straws and we can all do things, but really it's...
I think the common man now really is used to recycling.
Heads. Yeah.
I mean, well, I don't know. I can only really speak for Massachusetts, but in Massachusetts, I mean, that's been sort of a game that we've had to play for a long time, recycling, not being able to throw that stuff away.
It's going to be a continuous part of climate preservation. We can't keep consuming like drunken sailors. We have to figure out a way to see. One thing one of you said earlier about when everything's okay and the climate's the economy is just moving along fine. That can't continue to happen, because a growing economy, an infinitely growing economy on a finite planet, you're going to have a collapse, a collision. So this whole idea of GDP growth is got to become obsolete. And when you get to the conclusion of the book,
go ahead.
You get a strategy there where we are very intentionally shrinking GDP as a part of preserving the planet. And I think the whole idea, the whole model, the current model of capitalism as it's only working good when it's growing is completely obsolete and dangerous. It's not just obsolete, but it threatens life on Earth. So we need to get a better grip of that.
Yeah, there's just a mismatch. There's an impedance mismatch of... You have an infinitely growing productivity curve, and resources that aren't infinite, and those don't match up. And so that curve, the productivity curve, probably needs to sort of plateau out, maybe, or at least slow significantly, right?
I would slow it down. It depends on what you're talking about. There's productivity in green energy that needs to ramp up, right? So we talk about targeted consumption in the book. So you're actually, if you need to spend money on something, do it. If you're a homeowner, spend money on, solar system on the roof or a small windmill out back or something like that. It's a way of, targeting productivity rather than just thinking about a broad downturn. It depends on the sustainability of the particular industry or the particular process or product that is being considered. So it's a case-by-case situation.
Yeah, I work a lot with that, especially in this state. I mean, they're finding ways to use land to build solar fields on that otherwise would have been non-buildable. So I mean, I know that Massachusetts is definitely working for that. My particular corporation, I'm a land surveyor, is booming right now with 300 acre surveys just to find that 20 or 30 acres within it that they could set up some solar panels on and just run a limited infrastructure to use that sort of fossil fuel, and I know that's happening in a big way here in this state.
Right, we could actually cover the roads and parking lots in this country with what are called solar roads, hardened glass containers holding solar collectors and build the whole thing out.
Yeah, even shingles.
It's a very expensive investment, but eventually it would pay off in spades. I don't know if you saw Bernie Sanders' town hall recently on climate, but he had a Republican mayor from Mississippi on, and the town is completely 100% renewable energy. And he did it for economic reasons, because the gas or the price of fossil fuels is just going to keep going up. It's got to keep going up because they're getting harder and harder to extract. Once you have sustainable energy in place, green energy, whether it's solar or wind, your costs flatten out. So as a politician, you can tell people your taxes aren't, we're going to have this one tax and it's not ever going to go up. And eventually we'll be able to lower your taxes. It's an appealing economic argument, and that's what this guy was on the town hall panel discussion talking about.
Bernie is, I got to give him credit, Bernie is good for these really savvy deals. The Bezos Act that was proposed was also an incredibly skilled political maneuver.
Yeah, well crafted.
On his part to basically create an underemployment tax, and he got bipartisan support. It was very impressive.
He's actually quite a good politician.
Yeah.
I get it from both sides, from people on the Bernie or bust. Some of them are pissed off because he endorsed Hillary Clinton and campaigned for her, and most of us.
What the fuck are you going to do? I mean, this is
he gonna do?
Global
exactly.
Industrial, economic, political machinery at work. What the fuck are you going to do in the face of that in the end? I mean,
right, at that point, that's really the only backlash that Bernie got was that, that whole, people were afraid that there were a few that didn't show up to the polls to vote for Hillary because of Bernie, but in my opinion, it was just because they weren't. They weren't. They weren't bright enough to put him first. So I don't know. That was obviously a political friggin' catastrophe in my opinion. So
all right, so that's what we say to those people, Victor. What are the people on the right telling you?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're right. Remember, you have people who still support Bernie and people who are drop Bernie. Those are the contrasts I was laying out from members of our mailing list. There's people who still support him. I mean, you go through Facebook groups. There's just a ton of people starting to put up their Bernie 2020 page and not realizing that really not that much has changed in terms of how corrupt and rigged the Democratic Party is. And if he's going to get in, I still think he's going to need leverage, and I suspect that he might be very willing to take the pledge or sign a contract with us to do the climate preservation strategy, which means in 2020 we may end up being sort of a through the back door Bernie or bust again. It's very possible.
Wow. That's yeah.
Yeah, wait.
So,
okay, so it's a wait and see approach. I like it. You're taking the heavyweight champ approach. Like, I'll see, and then if I want to throw it in, I'll throw it in.
He has to earn it this time, rather than us just getting behind him because he's Bernie Sanders and with a political revolution. This time, revolutions are not campaigns. They're not top-down. Revolutions are grassroots affairs. And Bernie's revolution were three different groups. It was Movement for Bernie, People for Bernie, and then Bernie or Bust. And I don't know what he's going to get next time. There's a lot of people disappointed in him. At a certain extent, we're just going to make him like any other candidate. We're going to make them earn the support of everyone who takes this new pledge. We're 6 months ahead of where we were in 2014. We are 48,000 pledged subscribers to our newsletter ahead of where we were. And we know where we're going this time. We're not pioneers this time. We think we could make a lot more noise. And if we don't, let's just face it, we're facing doom. We're facing it'll be stages, right? In some of our lifetimes, it'll be coastal cities underwater, and then later on it's going to be more like Desert Earth and Mad Max scenario, and maybe sometime after that it'll be a planet that just can't sustain human life if runaway global warming really kicks in and just cranks up the carbon and methane. there may be no possibility for life on this planet. We are facing that kind of crisis. And as you said, we're running out of time. The IPCC report from August is what really changed our approach toward 2020. Because they said we have 12 years. And that doesn't mean we can wait 12 years and then get going. That means we really have to have carbon emissions reduced by near 50% in 10 years. So, or else we're doomed. And that sort of terrible analysis of the climate crisis it woke us up on the Revolt Against Plutocracy Committee. We are setting aside our agenda. We are setting aside our concern with plutocracy and our agenda for campaign finance reform that would give us a democratic order. We're setting that aside for now because this is an existential crisis. This is an emergency that we have to deal with. And if we don't deal with it by 2020, it may be too late by 2024.
Do you think that Bernie would be willing to run on the ticket as a vice presidential candidate?
I don't know.
If there would be a young up-and-comer who sort of was looking good, and would he jump? Because, I really see how he could be effective as sort of that behind-the-scenes sort of running that sort of movement from that standpoint.
It could. I just don't know who he would get behind. In the end, whoever is the nominee has to be a climate preservation candidate, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to it. So it could be Bernie, or it could be, I guess, Elizabeth Warren might do something like that. Tulsi Gabbard might do something like that.
I mean,
but and Bernie could run in a VP kind of situation. I don't know. He's talking about it. He was on the late night show or the late show recently talking about it, and it certainly seems like he's leaning in the direction of running again. But I could also see him, giving someone else a chance to try to do it.
I think we're going to see a primary with a lot of candidates. I think we're going to see like 12 people up on that stage in that first debate.
I think there's going to be a push of youth.
There's going to be Booker, there's going to be Harris, there's going to be probably Gabbard, probably Sanders. Like, it's going to be a bloodbath for the first few debates or whatever until they really settle down on Warren, Beto O'Rourke. I mean, any of these people.
Where are you on Warren here, Victor? Are we going to see a repeat? Let's say Warren and Bernie both go.
Well, there's no question. I mean, it's out of our hands.
Yeah,
we're going to present them with our demand, and if they don't meet our demand, then it doesn't matter what their name is.
If we do a repeat, I'm going to start buying guns. I don't own a gun, but I'm going to start buying guns.
Well, I mean, I just don't want it to be some fucking button.
I'm only kidding, Victor. I'm only kidding.
I don't want to see Beto O'Rourke versus Trump because, first of all, O'Rourke's going to get his ass kicked. And, I mean, he couldn't even beat Ted Cruz.
That just looks like the way that it would happen again. And if it literally plays out that way and we see a repeat performance in a re-election by 45, then I will just lose a lot of faith in everything that we have.
But to the end that, Victor, that you're into, pushing the climate change agenda, and to the end that you're going to hold people's feet to the fire on that issue, WikiLeaks on Weed is 100% with you.
Without that, help. Without a doubt. Yeah, they should take the pro-truth pledge, the whole 9 yards.
Great. We will be making that announcement on shortly after, I believe, January 2nd, but soon after New Year's. We'll be, getting this whole thing going again, and that's going to be basically what we're going after. Just to go after or mention Warren again.
Yeah, go for it.
In the book, we basically denounce her because of her cowardice, during the primaries last time around. She had her chance to show she was a progressive, a real progressive, and she ended up choosing the neoliberal warmongers. She endorsed Hillary Clinton, for God's sake. That's not a profile in courage. That's a profile. She sat around waiting until after the Massachusetts primary with her finger in the wind, trying to see which way the wind's blowing. I don't have much respect for her. So, like anyone else, she's going to have to earn our support, and we're going to lay it out very specifically what they have to do in order to get our support. They won't do it, though, until we build 50, 100, 200, 300,000 voters saying, I'm a climate voter. This is a litmus test. If you're not willing to, sign a pledge committing yourself to climate preservation, you're no better than Donald Trump on this issue, and this is the issue.
That is the issue, yeah.
Yeah. In some ways, it's the only issue because it's such an emergency and such an existential threat. I mean, I know better to make the claim it is the only issue, but in some ways it is by far the most important issue. We're not going to handle this. It doesn't matter what you are for or against. Nothing's going to survive in the end.
Oh, for me,
the end is going to be hundreds of millions of years from now. The sun's going to get too hot anyway for us here on Earth. But
well, the end message should really be that, I mean, okay, let's say that we get all of our stuff straight here, and we get our emissions and all of this in order. We'll look and turn and see how much more work we have to do, because it's almost immaterial what we do. That it has to be a worldwide movement, to make sure that, China doesn't just run it into the ground anyways, let's say.
China, India, Brazil wants to flatten the rainforest, which will just, it's a horrifying situation down there, too. No, we do have a lot of work cut out for us, and part of what we want to figure out is how to make this more international. How do we do, besides, a multilingual website where we share best practices and technological developments, we share intellectual property, and sort of, because this could actually bring about a new world order if we were able to internationally. First of all, nationally, we want to scale up what we need, in terms of carbon capture and in terms of reductions and reduction of carbon emissions and development of alternative energies.
Are you looking at all into like some sort of cryptocurrency, like a nationwide cryptocurrency, like, as long as you can give us, the turnover that we're looking for, you can make, space bucks, and I have my quotation fingers up?
No, because that's on the wrong side of the energy equation. Those server farms, and there's tons of them all over the place, are incredibly energy intensive.
Yeah, they are, yes. Every CPU running.
So, I'm not, at this point, it's not that I'm against it, I just wish we could figure out a more efficient way to do it, because, again, every time they put up one of these server farms, it's the opposite direction we need to be going in terms of energy conservation. So I'm just not big on cryptocurrencies right now, just because of the nature of blockchain technology and how so many people can make some money off it.
Oh, without a doubt. We've talked about it on the show. I mean, what do? They do Baltimore. They do what the city of Baltimore does in a day to get one. To break it once or whatever it is.
The city jumps around, but the power consumption of the Bitcoin network in particular is like massive.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yep. So that's a bit of a problem because, like I said, it's the opposite of what we need to be doing, which is going on a massive energy diet, and that's just part of a multi-pronged approach. Another thing that can be done, because the government has the money, is to buy these carbon captains of carbon out. Just literally buy their companies, make sure the employees have a parachute into a job in sustainable energy. The government can afford this.
Who did that? Who bought Carbon Captain?
Just basically buy their business from them and give them a little parachute into retirement or some new venture that they might want to get involved in.
Has there been a precedent for that?
There is. It's on small scale. The government will buy up a farm because they want to run a throughway through there.
I see.
That's the principle. But the cost is no object. That's what I'm trying to stress here. We could do anything we needed to do. It doesn't matter if we go into $10 trillion debt or $90 trillion debt. It sounds like an awful lot of money, but it's just numbers on a spreadsheet, right? Because we have fiat currency in this country. This is something I learned after the book, and it's not in the book. But the fact of the matter is, and I don't know if you covered this before. You've had anyone on your show talking about modern monetary theory, but we have fiat currency, which means it's not tied to gold. It's not tied to it's not tied to anything.
Yeah, they do the quantitative easing, and they just print more money, which literally, I mean, you made a quip. It sounded like a quip when you said it, like it's just numbers on a spreadsheet, but the easing of the money is literally just them updating the databases at the banks.
That's correct. It's moving numbers around on government and bank spreadsheet.
Yep. And then suddenly there's just more money in the economy. So yeah, I mean, yeah, the back to the promise of crypto is that it's non-fiat, so there's only going to be a certain amount printed or whatever. But again, the energy consumption is a thing. But
it'd be nice to be able to set up a farm that ran somehow on its own. If you could spread the right message via that, because I really think that you're going to have to sort of pay out to the populace to do it, to get that ball moving. Again, it's for me, it's making people change, and it's, as far as internationally goes, never mind here, you're going to have to motivate people somehow, and we all know what the greatest motivator is.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, and I did just read an article recently that sort of lent some hope into the possibility that could become policy. Just buy these people out, and you could do it in every country, basically every country around the world. You could just buy out slowly. I mean, we can't snap our fingers and be off carbon usage or off fossil fuels. It's going to take a process. We're recommending a 5% reduction a year, which puts us on track with the IPCC requirements of 50% reduction in 10 years. But it has to continue. I mean, we need a whole generation to get this thing flipped over to something sustainable. And even then, the Earth is going to continue warming because of what's already in the air. So we also need carbon capture, which could get very expensive. And we might need to figure out solar radiation management techniques. There's a test starting next year using high altitude balloons spraying calcium carbonate into the stratosphere. That's Tums. Man acid is all that is.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
For what purpose?
Ozone.
Just to help promote it?
No, to block the sun. Just like after there's a volcano.
Okay.
That blew, I believe, in '94. It was so much particulate in the upper atmosphere, the stratosphere, that it blocked the sun and cooled the Earth by 0.9 degrees centigrade, which is significant cooling. We need to do that because we have a positive feedback loop in place right now with methane evaporation. Methane, as probably most people listening know, is a very potent greenhouse gas. In the short term, it's like 84 times more effective as a greenhouse gas than carbon. So it's, as the planet warms, this stuff starts melting and evaporating, and it's bubbling up on the continental shelf around the Arctic Sea. And in the Arctic Sea itself, and in the permafrost, this stuff is starting to thaw and just come out of the ground and out of the water. And there's no way of capturing that. You just can't go out and grab that. So the only thing right now we have is the possibility of cooling this planet with either atmospheric spraying of particulate matter of some sort or space-based umbrellas.
Wow. Okay. What? Physical?
Yeah.
Okay.
Physical, yeah. I mean, we can put a man on the moon. We can build a geo-satellite or a series of satellites around the Earth to, at some layer,
create a net.
Some level, some distance out there. It doesn't have to be, what's the word I want? Geosynchronous. Right? But it has to be enough of it out there to cool the Earth. And part of the problem of that is how it adversely affects crops. So it's not a straightforward thing here. We can't cool the Earth too fast. We can't shade the Earth too much, or we'll have starvation of our own causing. We have to do this carefully. And so what we want to call for are feasibility studies more than, let's put this into practice right now. We don't want to do that because we don't want to make mistakes. We want to figure out the science of geoengineering, basically.
Jesus. We're so fucked. We're so
all
deeply fucked.
I think we're all growing
our
own vegetables in this room right now. So I mean, we're trying, but I mean, this has been a great conversation. I mean, seriously, I'm glad to know that little bit of insight that will be that driving force, because it's for real, and people just need to just shut up and change and do what they have to do.
Yeah. All right. So.
Done.
I'm going to plug you, Victor, and then you got about 60 seconds left to say whatever you need to say, and then we're going to move on to our next guest here. But burnyorbust.info, we got it up on the live stream on YouTube right now. We'll say it again, Burn Your Bust, Pioneers of Electoral Revolt by at Burn Your Bust, a.k.a. Victor, Tiffany, and Patrick Walker. And go ahead, Victor, say what you want to say.
This is not like any other book out there. It's not just a memoir. We use a memoir. We packed around it basically a manifesto and a how-to guide for revolution, a way to make sure you're registered, because there's this deregistration Republicans are doing in all these states. It's a how-to guide for peaceful revolution in this country, and the idea is to share it, to give it away for Christmas. The last day you can order tomorrow if you want to use it as a gift, Christmas gift. The last day to order is tomorrow, but even into the New Year's, and just get it, read it if you want, and share it. That's our distribution strategy, is share this book.
Get it on people's coffee tables. We want it on coffee tables.
Get these ideas out. All right, Victor, thank you so much for calling in, man.
Yes,
we hope to stay in touch and talk again.
All right, will do. Thanks.
Bye-bye.